The person serving water in front of only glanced at the girl's hand and discovered that her finger was broken. He took the ice cream from the boy standing next to him, ate the entire ice cream in 2 bites, then immediately put the ice cream down on the girl's finger, conveniently pulled out the girl's hair tie, and immediately made a simple, fixed splint. He jokingly asked for money for medical treatment, but the girl said that she did not ask him to treat her. He said he had already treated the girl and teased her to pay him quickly. When leaving, Park Hoon emphasized that she must go to the hospital for a checkup. Then the girl and her father went to the hospital. The doctor saw the fixed splint on the girl's hand and was extremely surprised. Luckily, the fixed splint was there in time. If it had been any longer, she would have lost her finger. The doctor told the girl to get a CT scan, but right at the turn, she heard a familiar sound. It turned out to be Park Hoon, who helped her fix her fingers. Just as her father wanted to thank, he suddenly coughed violently. Park Hoon discovered the father's abnormality, then placed his hand on this man's chest to perform diagnosis. This unreasonable action was pushed away by her father. He said there was nothing wrong with him. JT was just a common cold. But soon the girl's father gradually had difficulty breathing. At that time, a serious traffic accident occurred on the highway, and a large number of injured people were taken to the hospital. The little girl saw her father's uncomfortable appearance and was very worried. She wanted to find a doctor to check on her father, but the doctors were all treating the injured people brought by ambulances. No one paid attention to her. The helpless girl could only raise her voice to attract attention, but in less than 2 seconds the doctor started busy working again. Park Hoon finished giving the water and saw everything. Right at that moment, a kind doctor ran over to ask. Just as he was about to check on her father, the doctor on the side called him for help. He could only ask his colleague to take the father for a CT scan. Park Hoon didn't feel secure immediately, went along to see what was going on, but while in the elevator, her father suddenly fainted. Park Hoon and the doctor quickly helped him out of the elevator. The doctor rushed to get aid equipment, and Park Hoon placed his hand on the girl's father's chest. A 3D image of this man's heart immediately appeared in his mind. He discovered that the girl's father had suffered a cardiac arrest, but the doctor only held one simple oxygen mask, then intubated the patient. But Park Hoon asked the doctor to check his heart. The doctor did not pay attention to him, only saw him grab the oxygen ventilator, loudly saying the doctor checked his heart. The helpless doctor just started checking. The result was as Park Hoon said. He quickly asked the doctor to perform cardiovascular resuscitation. The nurse also brought in an electrocardiograph. Park Hoon prepares to save the patient. With the help of Park Hoon, the girl's father regained her heartbeat, but surgery is needed immediately. The preparations for the surgery are complete, but at this moment, can't contact the surgeon due to a traffic accident. The doctor who performed the surgery is currently performing another surgery. The assistant in the operating room came out and said if they don't do it quickly, the girl's father could die at any time. Hearing this, the little girl silently shed tears. She knew that only the man in front of her could save her father. She wanted to ask Park Hoon to do the surgery, but all the surgery hospitals ruined his career as a doctor. As soon as Park Hoon turned to leave, the girl pulled him back, then took the only coin from her pocket and put it in Park Hoon's hand. "Please save my father." This little girl's action touched him. He silently decided that no matter what the consequences, he would try his best to help her. He started preparing for the surgery. When he entered the operating room, everyone else was surprised. Everyone didn't know who it was. Before everyone could react, the surgery began. Unexpectedly, no blood flowed out when he cut the line down. This made the surrounding doctors extremely surprised. They didn't expect someone with such skillful skills, but they did not know that the water carrier had been imprisoned in a secret research institute for the past 5 years. Every day he performed dozens of surgeries, but his surgery success rate was 100%. When he was proceeding to an important step, suddenly lost power, which made everyone around him extremely frightened. But the main doctor was not frightened at all. He relied on his many years of experience to complete the inherently impossible surgery in the dark. In this place he trained a brave spirit. He treated this patient to help the girl whose name he did not even know, because this person was the girl's father. The operation was going on orderly way, but at this moment, Dr. Soo-hyun came again. She was suspicious of the strange main doctor in this surgery. At this time, Dr. Soo-hyun was extremely distrustful. She did not think that a person who brought water could complete the operation. She asked to immediately stop the surgery. Park Hoon said, "If I don't do it, then can you do it?" But Soo-hyun is not capable of performing this surgery. She having never undergone such a complicated surgery. The assistant next to her also said that this type of complicated surgery could not be done by Soo-hyun and told her to rest assured, even though he was not a doctor. His skills were very good. Soo-hyun was helpless and could only leave. Then she called many security guards, preparing to take Park Hoon away after the surgery, and the surgery was completed smoothly. The girl's father had been saved. saved. Soo-hyun looked in the direction of the operating room, but could not see the water delivery man anywhere. Just as Park-hoon was about to leave, Soo-hyun chased him and stopped him. She slapped Park-hoon incomprehensibly, and Park-hoon didn't want to explain much to her. He said that no matter what his status was, as long as he could save the patient, that was enough. Soo-hyun was about to hit him, but was caught by him, but she used her other hand to hit him. At this moment, the emergency room called. It turned out that the girl's father had complications after surgery. His blood pressure was decreased rapidly. This made the doctor nearby panic, but Park-hoon had already predicted this, described the patient's condition in detail, and proposed a solution. Dr. Han had just performed surgery, then he rushed over. The first aid measures were exactly as Park-hoon said. This also surprised Soo-hyun, but at this time, Soo-hyun had no intention of letting him go. At this time, Dr. Han came over and said that even if he had a license to practice, he could not perform surgery in hospitals without being registered. Fortunately, the patient has nothing to worry about, never appear again in the future, and Park-hoon also wanted to quickly leave this place. Then he began to continue delivering water, but at this moment another doctor wanted to arrest him. The doctor, at this remote private clinic, was examining an uncle with many tattoos. The surgery was only half done, and the doctor was already asking for medical fees. Hearing that the junior was upset, just one look made him want to hit someone. But this doctor was also not average. He pressed his forehand on the wound of the big man. The big brothers screamed in pain. The juniors panicked. Park-hoon sat down and said the surgery fee was 150,000 won, and each stitch cost 10,000 won. Roughly 10 stitches are needed, which is about 100,000. Seeing that the other person was hesitant to make a decision, Park-hoon pressed on the wound again. Until he had paid enough money, the surgery ended smoothly, because in order to make more money, he opened a private clinic himself. Because he saved the father of a little girl at the hospital. This also made him famous. One day, a doctor came to his clinic, and what this man saw was exactly Park-hoon's superior medical skills. He wanted to invite Park-hoon to his hospital to work against Dr. Han, who was also the best doctor at that hospital. But Park-hoon was not interested. He thought his clinic made money faster. But as soon as Dr. Moon used the power of money, Park-hoon immediately agreed, because 2 years ago, several prisoners were sent to the hospital where Park-hoon was being held, but he accidentally discovered that the red string in the other person's hand was a gift he personally gave to his girlfriend, Jae-hee, when he was young. He quickly chased after him and didn't dare to believe everything before his eyes. When he pulled down the white cloth, the person lying in front of him was his girlfriend, Jae-hee. At this moment, he also made up his mind to take his girlfriend away from this place. Under his treatment, Jae-hee also quickly woke up. Park-hoon took advantage of the guards not paying attention and took Jae-hee away, but God did not bless the two of them. They were quickly caught up by the Research Institute's bodyguards to stop. Park-hoon didn't run away anymore. The man in black opened fire towards Jae-hee. Just as Jae-hee was about to fall into the lake, Park-hoon was able to hold her hand. Jae-hee, in order to not involve Park-hoon, ended up she still chose to let go, and Park-hoon was also chased by the police and arrested and deported back to his country. After returning home, Park-hoon desperately searched for Jae-hee's whereabouts. Finally, he got some news from an uncle. This uncle took him to a mysterious basement, and the person on the screen was his girlfriend, Jae-hee, he had been looking for so long. This uncle told him that if he wanted to save his girlfriend, he needed a lot of money. That's why Park-hoon attaches great importance to money. Then they went to the hospital, but Park-hoon discussed the conditions with Dr. Moon. It was at this moment that Park-hoon seemed to see his girlfriend. He quickly ran after she to see what was going on, but the woman disappeared around a corner. He went to the private detective who was investigating his girlfriend's case and asked him why he lied to him, but the uncle loudly affirmed that he had mistaken the person. It's just that they look alike. At this time, Park-hoon also suspected that he was mistaken, but as soon as Park-hoon left, a strange man came to his uncle, telling him stopped investigating Park-hoon's girlfriend because he saw Jae-hee's figure in the hospital. With the introduction of Dr. Moon, Park-hoon came to this hospital to work. Dr. Moon gave him some insurance money, say that he using it. Then Park-hoon went to the detective, the uncle. He wanted this man to continue investigating Jae-hee's whereabouts and even split the money in half. He announced that after finding Jae-hee, he would pay this man the other half. This man was very angry, but on the first day of work, he met Soo-hyun. As soon as she met him, she kicked him, but suddenly an emergency happened in the hospital room. Park-hoon rushed over. As soon as he entered, he saw a scene that made everyone who saw it angry. The patient had a cardiac arrest, but the nurse beside him could only stand and watch. The reason is that the patient signed a commitment to refuse cardiopulmonary resuscitation, but Park-hoon did not allow any patient to die in front of him. He tried his best to cure the patient. Under his constant efforts, in the end, he was able to save the patient from death. But when doing the examination, he discovered a bracelet on the patient's wrist. At this time, he was unusually agitated. This was clearly the bracelet he had gave it to his girlfriend. But why did it appear on this patient's wrist now? He seriously thought about the relationship between Jae-hee and this person. Then he called to ask for information about the patient. After investigating, he found out that this patient was Soo-hyun's mother. Park Hoon looked at the bracelet he gave to Jae-hee. At this moment, he made a bold decision. Then he began to analyze the patient's condition and also began to simulate the surgical process in his mind. But no matter how he simulated, the surgery could not be successful, which also meant that he lost track of his girlfriend's whereabouts. Why did Soo-hyun give up saving her mother? It turns out that when she was young, her mother cruelly abandoned her and left her with the father. This made her always hold a grudge in her heart. But as soon as she turned to leave, the mother took her hand with difficulty. At this moment, she was extremely miserable. She looked at the mother she hated to the core, asking the other person why did abandon her. But the mother quickly fell into a coma. She called her boyfriend Dr. Han and wanted to ask him to save her mother. But Dr. Han did not answer the phone because he knew the success rate for this surgery was almost zero. He wanted to protect his success rate, so he refused to do this surgery again. At this time, So-hun was very helpless. She thought that the only person who could do surgery on her mother was Park Hoon. On the other side, Park Hoon is still simulating the surgery. But just when he wanted to give up, Soo-hyun came to him. At this time, So-hun was extremely heartbroken. She imitated the other girl, put a coin in Park Hoon's hand, and wanted to ask him to help her with the surgery. After learning about her relationship with her mother, Park Hoon immediately agreed. Park Hoon's surgery success rate is 100%. If the surgery is not guaranteed to be successful, he won't do it. But this time he intends to try it once, even if there is only a 0.01% probability he will try. The surgery is about to start, but the director is above the observatory called, asking to immediately stop the surgery. This made Park Hoon extremely confused. He looked at Soo-hyun next to him. Only then did Park Hoon realize that she was the daughter of the president of the hospital. He then started the surgery despite the director's objections. Soo-hyun was also very touched by his defiant behavior. Dr. Han heard this news and rushed over, but Soo-hyun filled with disappointment for him. The 7-hour surgery made everyone very tired. Park Hoon's operations were very careful, but at this time during the surgery an incident occurred. Park Hoon gave emergency medical care to the patient, but no matter how hard he tried, the patient's life was now decided. Soo-hyun did not want to accept the fact that her mother had passed away, so she pushed Park Hoon came out and then started resuscitation by herself. Park Hoon didn't have the heart to look at her heartbroken appearance, but he was helpless and couldn't do anything. Soo-hyun was very heartbroken and unwilling. She still didn't know why her mother abandoned her. She was gone forever. Park Hoon hugged her tightly and calmed her mood. It was at this moment that Dr. Han, her boyfriend, saw the scene in front of him, which also made his heart extremely complicated. Next, Dr. Han began to retaliate against Park Hoon. The next day, the hospital held a disciplinary meeting for him. Dr. Han questioned Park Hoon about why he did the surgery. Park Hoon said he did it for money. This statement made everyone extremely surprised, but they didn't know that Park Hoon only received 1 coin. He simply wanted to help Soo-hyun's mother. Park Hoon did not want things to become too serious. He decided to humble himself before Dr. Han and then left. But Dr. Han still refused to give up. Park Hoon couldn't help but get angry. Park Hoon said that he was not worthy of being a doctor. In order to protect his surgical success rate, he did not want to performing surgery on patients. Doctors only do surgeries with a high success rate. If the success rate is low, then do you have to watch them die? These words made Dr. Han unable to say anything. Soo-hyun also said that she was very disappointed with this boyfriend. Then Soo-hyun went to her mother's place, where she met Sung-hee. This person has a very similar appearance to the girlfriend that Park Hoon has been looking for many years. It turns out she is Soo-hyun's mother's personal doctor. Sung-hee gave Soo-hyun's mother's things to her. Then Sung-hee said that actually her mother still always loved her very much. At that time, her grandmother abandoned Soo-hyun just because she wanted her daughter to follow the father to have a better life. Soo-hyun heard this and could no longer control her emotions. The gap between mother and daughter was also resolved. Unfortunately, her loving mother had left her forever. And on the other side, the detective uncle called Park Hoon to say he had found his girlfriend's whereabouts. This made he was extremely happy. The uncle told Park Hoon to prepare the money and then meet at the agreed place. When the two of them arrived at the agreed location, he did not know that there was a man in a black shirt following behind him. At this time, the man in black raised the gun in his hand. Right when the two were about to meet, a large truck blew out of control and crashed directly into this uncle's car. Park Hoon couldn't believe what happened before his eyes. He quickly went forward to rescue, then immediately carried his uncle back to his clinic. Dr. Moon also rushed over when he heard the news. Park Hoon began the surgery, but after all, his clinic had many limitations. Park Hoon put his hand inside the patient's body, then closed his eyes and felt it. Dr. Moon did not dare to believe what he saw. He did not expect that Park Hoon's medical skills were so advanced. In such harsh conditions, he could still perform surgery. Under Park Hoon's first aid, he also survived the critical condition. Then the ambulance came to take the uncle to the hospital. But at this moment, the man in black appeared again, and at this time, Park Hoon did not detect it. As soon as they were about to go to the hospital room, they found that they couldn't find this uncle. He quickly asked the nurse, but the nurse didn't know anything. Her expression was very suspicious. This person's attitude made Park Hoon extremely confused. But at this moment, the detective uncle sent a text message again, saying he was going abroad to recuperate, and told Park Hoon not to contact him again. Park Hoon hurriedly called, but the other person didn't answer, and the person holding the phone was the man in the black shirt. Park Hoon lost his clue about his girlfriend again. It seemed like there was a mysterious force preventing him from finding his girlfriend. Then he looked towards the camera in the hospital. He had seen his girlfriend's figure in this place before, so just checking the camera can determine if it's the person Park Hoon is looking for or not. But not everyone can check the hospital's security cameras. He just walked in and was kicked out. He went to Soo-hyun because he knew she was the president's daughter. Maybe she could take him for a checkup. Then the two of them went to the door of the surveillance room. Soo-hyun could really help him see surveillance camera. After a while of searching, he finally found someone who resembled his girlfriend. But the video was not clear, so it was impossible to identify this woman's face. But it was possible to determine that this was the doctor at this hospital. Park Hoon took Soo-hyun to his clinic. He wanted to show her his girlfriend Jae-hee, because Soo-hyun knew all the doctors in the hospital. But when she saw Soo-hyun's photo, she was extremely surprised because the person in the photo was her mother's personal doctor. Park Hoon quickly asked her again, and Soo-hyun also gave him a certain answer. Then they both drove to the hospital, but couldn't find Jae-hee here. The two of them just had to ask for the other person's phone number to contact. Suddenly, a familiar voice came from behind. It was the person they were looking for. Park Hoon excitedly looked at the woman in front of him, but the other person said she didn't know him. Park Hoon took out the bracelet he gave her when she was young, hoping she could remember it. But Sung-hee in front of him was extremely angry because it was a lucky gift she gave to Soo-hyun's mother. She asked why it appeared in Park Hoon's hand, after saying that she wanted to take it back but was not careful and grabbed the bracelet, causing it to break. Faced with Park Hoon's question, she became extremely angry and then turned around and left. Park Hoon didn't accept it, so he hurriedly chased after her. At this time, Sung-hee was treating the patient. Faced with Park Hoon, who had lost his reason, she became extremely angry. Then Sung-hee pushed the patient away. Seeing Park Hoon heartbroken, Soo-hyun had no choice but to drag him away. The two went to a barbecue restaurant. Park Hoon was in a bad mood and borrowed wine to soothe his sadness. Soo-hyun asked him if he knew his girlfriend's parents, because Soo-hyun saw it on the website. Sung-hee's profile has a family photo of 3 people. Looking at the photo on phone, Park Hoon remembered that his girlfriend's biological father was really different from the person in the photo. Could it be that there really are people in this world who are so similar? Right now, he's not sure if Sung-hee is his girlfriend or not, but he doesn't want to lose his girlfriend's whereabouts again. Looking at a man who has been so big and still defiant like that, Soo-hyun really admired Jae-hee. She couldn't help but touch Park Hoon's face, and this scene was often seen by Dr. Han. He picked up the phone to call Soo-hyun, but he did not expect that Soo-hyun would lie that she was at home. Park Hoon was drunk and considered Soo-hyun to be Jae-hee. Park Hoon slowly held her hand, and this time she didn't refuse. This doctor had a boyfriend and then went out drinking with her male colleagues. She didn't expect that this scene would be discovered by her boyfriend, but her boyfriend Dr. Han was not angry at all, because she is the daughter of the director, so Dr. Han needs her to carry out his plan. Soo-hyun originally called Sung-hee, hoping that Park Hoon would apologize to her for his actions just now. Didn't expect Park Hoon to get drunk. The two of them could only take Park Hoon to Soo-hyun's mother's house, but as a result they slipped. This unexpected accident made Soo-hyun very embarrassed, and Sung-hee also felt complicated in her heart. Sung-hee said it seemed like their relationship was very good. Then Soo-hyun immediately told Sung-hee about Park Hoon looking for a girlfriend. The next day, Dr. Han went to Park Hoon to warn him to stay away from his girlfriend, but Park Hoon didn't pay any attention and even teased Soo-hyun. This statement completely angered the doctor. Han, he don't allow anyone to say bad things about his girlfriend, but this scene was seen by Soo-hyun passing by. Dr. Han could only let go. Sung-hee's appearance made Park Hoon unable to live a normal life. He always thought the other person was his girlfriend. Dar-moon quickly comforted him and asked if there was any way to identify her as Jae-hee, such as the scar birthmark or something. Dr. Moon's words suddenly awakened Park Hoon. He remembered that his girlfriend had previously had a kidney transplant to help Park Hoon. Dr. Moon relied on his relationship and wanted to see the Sung-hee's medical records, but the hospital has strict regulations. Viewing other people's medical records will be punished by law. But Park Hoon didn't care that much. He directly grabbed the documents, then go back to his room to check. Dr. Moon quickly stopped him because doing so would cause him to lose his medical license. Park Hoon didn't care and immediately pushed Dr. Moon away. He stared at the screen in front of him, looking at the remaining kidney intact on the screen. Park Hoon sat down on the chair. Even though he didn't want to believe what was before his eyes, the truth was there. Park Hoon stood from afar looking at Sung-hee. This person looked like his girlfriend. He didn't believe that there are two people in this world who are so similar. Park Hoon recalls every moment between him and Jae-hee. He thought that no matter how disguised a person was, his heartbeat couldn't be deceived. After saying that, he immediately went up and hugged Sung-hee. Sung-hee did not refuse. Perhaps after hearing his story, she also sympathized with him a bit, and so Hyun, on the other side, felt that he was very excessive. But Park Hoon said that there was only one person in the world with the same heartbeat as him. That was his destiny. After saying that, he immediately hugged Soo-hun, which made Soo-hun angrily curse him as a bastard, then left. It was at this time in the hospital that there was a pregnant woman who was constantly excreting blood and oxygen from the body. If not resolved quickly, the fetus in the womb will be in danger. But the doctor in front of him doesn't know what to do, so he can only call the dean of the department, who is in the operating room, for advice. While Park Hoon put his hand on the patient's stomach, the other person's physical condition immediately appeared in his mind. The preliminary diagnosis was a lung laceration. Because an emergency CT scan could delay treatment, Park Hoon requested surgery directly for the patient. Sung-hee was an anesthesiologist, Soo-won as a surgical assistant. Under their tacit coordination, the surgery went very smoothly, which also made everyone extremely surprised. They thought that this small group of Park Hoon would definitely surpass Dr. Han's team in the near future. The patient's blood pressure suddenly dropped rapidly. Park Hoon suspected it was Sung-hee's mistake. The two people began to reason about their specialty. Fortunately, it was all for the sake of saving patients. With tireless efforts, the surgery ended smoothly, and with the baby's cry, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Their excellent treatment also received recognition from everyone. And on the other side, Dr. Moon went to Park Hoon. He thought that the medical records could be falsified. To determine the real identity of Sung-hee, he suggested doing a new test. This decision made Sung-hee very helpless, but she could not violate the hospital rules and had to do a new test. After that, Dr. Moon got the disc of test documents. Just open it to see Sung-hee's true identity. Sung-hee on the other side was very stressed. She called a man, and the man in front of is the man in black who prevented Park Hoon from investigating his girlfriend. The two people seemed to have some plot. While calling, Dr. Moon suddenly appeared. Mr. Call, Sung-hee. Then two people went to his office and said they wanted to check Sung-hee's health record disc. This made Sung-hee extremely scared. Then he immediately grabbed the disc, but Park Hoon suddenly stopped him. Sung-hee looked at Park Hoon in front of her. Seeing his steady eyes, she seemed to feel that Park Hoon knew something. Then he inserted the disc into the computer. The newly appointed former director Choi of the hospital went to ask Dr. Moon to hand over the plate. Just as Dr. Moon was hesitating, Park Hoon directly opened the medical examination notes. At this time, Sung-hee was extremely stressed, but what was shown was on the screen is surprising. Above are two complete kidneys, but through the look just now, Park Hoon has identified Sung-hee as his girlfriend. Jae-hee, the girlfriend who does not admit her identity, definitely have her own suffering. While Dr. Moon chose to apologize to Sung-hee, Sung-hee also didn't want to make a big deal out of this, so she immediately turned around and left. In the evening, Park Hoon returned home and saw that the disc had been replaced in his hand. Actually, he secretly swapped it because he was going to hide the truth from his girlfriend. It was at this time that Director Choi came to find Park Hoon to tell a secret. Actually, when he was very young, there was a medical accident in the hospital. Park Hoon's parents wanted a surgeon, must be responsible, but he did not know that the doctor in charge was the man in front of him. At that time, the hospital was in a prosperous period. Director Choi did not allow any medical incident cases, so thinking of a way to stop everything, senior government counselor Yan came up with a good idea on their behalf. Because the North Korean leader needed heart bypass surgery, they asked this side to send a competent doctor to treat him in order to avoid a war. The higher-ups also agreed. If Park Hoon's father was sent to North Korea, he could no longer sue the hospital, and a war could be avoided because his parents divorced. Park Hoon could only follow his father abroad. After successful surgery, his father was also brutally murdered. He was detained in a surgical research institute day and night. After knowing the truth, Park Hoon was extremely depressed. Afterwards, Director Choi handed over the father's property to Park Hoon, looking at the glasses his father used to wear. Park Hoon silently shed tears. Park Hoon, after calming down, he went to Director Choi to give the medical report to the other party, then asked the patient's family about the situation. It turned out that after the patient died, his wife was extremely depressed and soon followed him, leaving behind only a boy. Then the boy was adopted in the United States, and since then, no more information has been available. Director Choi wanted to go to North Korea to find Park Hoon's girlfriend. Park Hoon told him to put his energy into the medical incident to find the other orphan to apologize to him. That orphan was having dinner with Abbott. Oh, that's Dr. Han. The director told the two of them to get married quickly, but Soo-hyun said she wasn't mentally prepared and said she had something to do, so she should leave first. In the elevator, she remembered Park Hoon. Maybe at this time she fell in love with Park Hoon. After returning, Dr. Han looked at the results in front of and told his parents to be patient and wait a little longer. That day, a pregnant woman came to the hospital. She wanted to kill her newborn because her twins had birth defects. The medical costs were too high for her to pay. No matter how much the doctor tried to stop her, she still refused to put down the knife in her hand. After learning about the incident, Park Hoon was very panicked. He rushed to check on the baby. After looking at the screen, he became very nervous and said that he had to do surgery on the baby immediately. Suddenly, a man stood up to stop them. It was the Abbott's son. He said this patient owed hundreds of thousands of won in medical fees. He was planning to kick her out of the hospital. Park Hoon couldn't bear to look at the patient was cornered. Right when the two were arguing, one of the two children had a cardiac arrest. Park Hoon quickly ran over. He asked Soo-hyun to stop her brother. They were half-sisters. Seeing this bastard brother, Soo-hyun did not hesitate at all. Park Hoon hugged the child. He knelt on the hospital bed, continued to give artificial respiration, then gently pressed the child's chest with his finger, then continued respiration, then chest compression, and repeated many times, finally successfully awakening the child's heart. At this moment, he was extremely happy because under his care, he had successfully saved a child. Looking at this immature life, everyone had mixed emotions in their hearts. Looking at the poor mother and child, Park Hoon silently decided to save their lives. At this moment, he thought of a way. Because the hospital had just held a meeting, decided to select 2 medical teams to perform heart surgery for high-ranking officials. One team was led by Dr. Han, and the other team was assigned to Park Hoon, even though everyone doubted his ability. But Director Oh still thought that his skills were excellent. After hearing the news, Park Hoon was extremely angry because this high-ranking official was Yang Suk-soo, the person who indirectly caused his father's death. He went to Dr. Han to directly take off his blouse to signify his defeat. He told Dr. Han's team to operate on Yang Suk-soo. But at this moment, he changed his mind. Park Hoon rushed into the director's room, interrupting everyone's surgical discussion. He looked at Yang Suk-soo in front of him, then picked up his white blouse and said, "I can participate in this surgery competition, but I have a condition that all competition surgery costs will be borne by the hospital, and as a participant in this match, I want to exchange it for hospital money for the twins with congenital heart defects, so Park Hoon can help the patient not have to pay hospital fees." Park Hoon looked at the enemy who harmed his father in front of him as if he had his own plan. Then he angrily went to find Yang Suk-soo. "Do you know that suddenly, I really wanted to win that contest. Now I really want to know what your heart is like. I'm also very curious how you will treat it. Pray that I don't operate on you, because if I open your chest and touch your heart, you will die." This man in front of is the person in charge of recruiting children in America. He received a mandate from former director Choi to search for the remaining child after the medical incident 20 years ago. But the two of them are very close friends. Even the other's revenge plan is well known. Son Chang did not tell Dr. Han's true identity to director Choi. And on the other side, Park Hoon was even more certain that Sung Hee was his girlfriend, Jae Hee, because Yang Suk-soo once told Park Hoon that if you can't cure my heart, then you don't want to see your beloved girlfriend again. Park Hoon understands that Jae Hee has her own suffering. He just doesn't know what the real cause is. It turns out that Jae Hee, after falling into the lake, was saved by a man in black. Jae Hee was forced to join their organization, secretly carrying out a mission for Yang Suk-soo. The appearance of So Hyun just interrupted their conversation. This scene was also seen by the man in black. Then he went to Sung Hee and asked her to join Park Hoon's team and help Park Hoon get the opportunity to do surgery on Yang Suk-soo. Dr. Han and Park Hoon split up to hold a meeting about the surgery. Dr. Han's team members said that Soo-hyun was not qualified. They were afraid that she would affect her personality. Important part of this surgery. They kept questioning her. She helplessly went to Park Hoon and asked about the important part of their surgery. But Park Hoon directly grabbed her hand, then began to teach her how to operate it. This scene was seen by Sung Hee, who just came over. At this time, Sung Hee's heart was extremely complicated. And then Dr. Han suddenly appeared and was also extremely angry. This scene made Soo-hyun and Park Hoon extremely shy. Then Dr. Han called Soo-hyun away. But Sung Hee was very tense. "Could you have forgotten that Soo-hyun was Mopper, your opponent's first surgical assistant? You're facing Dr. Han." But Park Hoon doesn't care at all. In his heart, you just want to save the baby. Winning or losing in the match doesn't matter matter to him. Park Hoon very disappointed with Sung Hee, who was in front of him. He couldn't believe that in the other person's eyes there was only winning and losing, without any concern for the success of the surgery. But Sung Hee also had his own suffering. She couldn't tell everything to Park Hoon. And on the other side, Dr. Han felt that Soo Hyun asking his opponent about surgery made him lose face, so he kicked her out of his team. This made Soo Hyun very sad. She felt like she had seriously studied a lot for this surgery, but she didn't expect to get this result. Learned that Park Hoon came to find Soo Hyun. Under Park Hoon's persuasion, Soo Hyun agreed to help him complete the surgery. And on the other side, Sung Hee and the man in black went to the secret base, who waiting for them are Yang Suk-soo's subordinates. The squad leader said that the surgical squad had decided the surgical team for Yang Suk-soo was Dr. Han's team. Sung Hee and the man in black were no longer value, then immediately wanted to eliminate the two of them. The squad leader was counterattacked. The appearance of Yang Suk-soo broke the deadlock to determine whether Sung Hee was Park Hoon's girlfriend or not, so he wanted to check Sung Hee's body. After determining that she was Jae Hee, Yang Suk-soo decided to temporarily keep them alive and asked Park Hoon's team to win in this surgery, took the opportunity to operate on him. Then Sung Hee was about to leave. The man in black stopped her, and on the other side the surgery had begun. Sung Hee, the anesthesia in Park Hoon's team did not arrive on time, and Dr. Han's team had already started surgery, which made Dr. Moon extremely worried. This may be related to the patient's condition. Meanwhile, Park Hoon didn't know what was going on and wasn't worried at all. But Park Hoon was still steadfast in saying that Sung Hee would definitely come. At this moment, the door to the operating room slowly opened, and the person who came in was the doctor anesthesiologist Sung Hee. Luckily, she didn't lose much time. Sung Hee began to anesthetize the baby. The surgery officially began. The doctors on the observatory were extremely tense, because this was not just a match, it was also related to the lives of the two children. After that, the surgery took place in an orderly and stable manner. Dr. Han's speed was clearly faster than Park Hoon's. The two teams raced against time to perform surgery, but at this moment, Soo Hyun suddenly lost concentration, causing the patient's blood vessels to be removed. At this time, Soo Hyun was so frightened that the surgical tools fell to the ground. Watching time pass by every minute, she didn't believe she could handle it well. Sung Hee was very stressed at this time, because this matter related to her and Park Hoon's lives. But Park Hoon didn't know what was going on at this time, and was still steadfast telling Soo Hyun to handle it herself. Soo Hyun remembered the techniques Park Hoon taught her. She tried to overcome the tension inside, and Dr. Han on the other side completed the surgery. At the exact moment, Hae Sung Hee saw the man in black on the observatory. She didn't want to put Park Hoon in danger. Park Hoon frantically advised. Soo Hyun finally cheered up. With everyone's cooperation, the surgery also returned to the right trajectory. And on the other side, Dr. Han completed the surgery first. As time passed by every second and every minute, Park Hoon's team's surgery was also completed smoothly. But it was clear that there was more time than Dr. Han. For Park Hoon, as long as he can save the patient, it doesn't matter how fast or slow it is. But he doesn't know that this contest is related to his life and death with Sung Hee. The man in black is approaching Park Hoon, right at a dangerous moment. Sung Hee pushed Park Hoon away. When the two of them looked at each other, all the previous misunderstandings were resolved. Little by little, Sung Hee no longer avoided her identity. She is Park Hoon's girlfriend, Jae Hee. It was at this moment that the hospital alarm issued a green warning. Everyone rushed to the ITC room. The man in black could only leave in defeat. It turned out that Dr. Han's surgery had problems then. Dr. Han couldn't believe it, then asked his assistant what the cause was. This result made Dr. Moon extremely surprised. The opponent's failure also meant success own. Then Park Hoon and Jae Hee came over. Park Hoon was only worried about the baby's safety. He wanted to personally operate on the baby, but was stopped by Dr. Han. Then Dr. Han began to perform the second surgery on the baby. At this time, he was extremely angry because the success of this surgery was related to whether he could inherit the hospital or not. Director Oh in the audience was extremely disappointed in him. Then he turned and left. And on the other side, Jae Hee went to the man in black. She said that his haste almost killed her and caused Park Hoon to almost die. But in the eyes of the man in black, Jae Hee is just a puppet. Her and Park Hoon's lives were in his hands. He told them to give up the idea of running away. And on the other side, Park Hoon wanted to tell Jae Hee this good news, but he unable to contact her, until at a corner he saw Jae Hee. Park Hoon quickly followed, but quickly lost sight of the other person. Park Hoon saw Jae Hee's car at the hospital gate. He immediately followed. Eventually they arrived at his residence. As soon as Park Hoon turned around, he saw a smile that was both strange and familiar. Park Hoon remembered the images between him and Jae Hee. He couldn't believe that this day had actually come, even though he had to go through many difficulties to find a girlfriend. At this moment, Park Hoon thought that all the efforts were worth it. The two of them were far apart, years of embracing each other and not letting go. They watched the person they loved gently caressing each other's cheeks. At this moment, the two of them could no longer contain their emotions. In the following days, the two of them lived a happy life, because two can be with Jae Hee forever. Park Hoon took Jae-hee away from this place. He bribed an uncle and the other party promised that he would quietly take the two of them away. But Jae-hee was extremely worried. As expected, a group of strange men pressed the uncle to the ground. Park Hoon took Jae-hee and prepared to run away. But very quickly the two were surrounded, and the leader was the man in black. Park Hoon was arrested. At this time, he was extremely worried about his girlfriend. Then Jae-hee was taken in by two men. Seeing girlfriend being taken to, Park Hoon was begged miserably, but the man in black was not intending to let the two of them go. He began to insult Jae-hee in front of Park Hoon. Park Hoon saw this scene and was extremely depressed. The man in black saw that he had achieved his goal and immediately arranged for someone to take Jae-hee left. Then he warned Park Hoon, firstly, he must perform surgery on Yang Suk-soo. Secondly, not to let anyone know Jae-hee's identity. He injected medicine into his body, and soon he fainted. But Park Hoon did not know that this was just a play, played by the man in black and Jae-hee, because the two of them inherently belonged to the same organization. Jae-hee looked at poor Park Hoon. She still had a duty on her shoulders and was reluctant. Then the two of them left. Not long after Park Hoon woke up in the other person's car, he was very worried about his girlfriend's safety. He risked his life to search for Jae-hee's whereabouts. Suddenly Soo-hyun called. She said Jae-hee was next to her. After Park Hoon came and directly pulled Jae-hee away, making everyone extremely confused. But at this time, Park Hoon still refused to give up. He did not want to be under the control of the man in black. He wanted to continue to take Jae-hee away. And Jae-hee knew clearly the power of organization. No matter where they run, they will find two of them. Even the Prime Minister is one of their people. At this time, Park Hoon also made up his mind to perform surgery on Yang Suk-soo. Dr. Han, on the other side, wanted to save his team's defeat. He wanted to beg head of the hospital, Oh, to give him another chance. And the head of the hospital, Oh, was not at all soft-hearted about failure. Not only did he not give him a chance, also wanted to appoint him to a faraway academy. Because of his revenge plan, he directly knelt on the ground, begged Director Oh to give him a chance. Dr. Han remembered that when he was a child, it was this person who killed his father. As long as he could take revenge, even if he had to kneel in front of the enemy, he would accept it. Looking at Dr. Han, always kneeling outside the door, Director Oh came out again. He remembered that everything he said to Director Oh when he was young was completely different from what he said now, but he knew this clearly was his only chance. On the other side, Park Hoon, because of an uncle who had no money for medical treatment, intended to confront Dr. Han again, but Director Oh showed a strange smile because it was just now that he promised Park Hoon's assistant a high position, telling him to make the surgery fail no matter what. This could save a large amount of money and could make the doctor sick. Dr. Han won, but when the surgery began, Jong-han told Park Hoon that the patient had a blood clotting disorder, also known as low platelets, in which case, surgery was not possible using anticoagulants. Jong-han's goal was to prevent Park Hoon from continuing with the surgery, but he didn't care about that at all, because in order to save the patient, Park Hoon still wanted to try a little. He thought of a method that had been lost for a long time. He wanted to do a surgery that did not require anticoagulants, which was to reconstruct the left ventricle. As soon as he said this, everyone was extremely surprised, because the success rate of this surgery is very low. People have only heard about it, but have never actually seen it, let alone doing this type of surgery. Then how this type of surgery is complete? For example, this orange is the patient's heart. Cut the surface of the heart, then remove the dead tissue inside, and finally sew it back together. It sounds very simple, but the success rate is very low. Especially this type of necrotic tissue has a large area, the success rate is lower. This duel attracted the attention of everyone in the hospital. Everyone also wanted to witness a surgery without what would be the outcome of this success. Park Hoon began to open the patient's chest, but at this moment, the cog of the sternum calcification broke. Park Hoon's right hand was injured. The unexpected situation made everyone very worried. Park Hoon quickly changed to another pair of gloves and continued to complete the thoracic surgery, but blood had completely soaked the gloves. He clearly could not complete this surgery at this time. Helpless, he could only ask to change positions with his surgical assistant, but the head nurse on the side stopped the two of them. Everyone was very confused, but she still remained determined to chase the surgical assistant away. Because broken saw teeth are not normal, and were checked by medical staff, Park Hoon's surgeon was the one who installed the saw blade, so she suspected he was playing tricks, so she chased him away. The head nurse treated Park Hoon's wound. The main doctor was injured in his hand and had no surgical assistant. The surgery could not continue. In his helplessness, he could only borrow someone from the neighboring operating room, but Dr. Han is an opponent, so he doesn't want to help. Then lent him an intern doctor. Park Hoon had no choice but to agree, but Soo-hyun was extremely angry. She did not think an intern could take on the important task, so she actively asked to help them. Dr. Han asked in return, "Do you want to go to the opposite side to help, just for this reason?" In fact, Dr. Han has known for a long time that Soo-hyun likes Park Hoon, so he did not agree with this request, but Soo-han was still worried about Park Hoon. She ignored Dr. Han asked and to perform the surgery, and Hussey took on the position of assistant surgeon. When the two people changed positions, the surgery continued, and Park Hoon only used one hand to perform the surgery. And moreover, he was not a surgeon with the dominant hand. Everyone was worried, but on Dr. Han's side the process was clearly much faster, and they soon entered the suturing stage, along with the electrocardiogram being awakened, which also means Dr. Han successfully completed the surgery. And on the other side, Park Hoon also reached the final stage, with electric shock to the patient's heart, but the heart still could not beat again. This scene made everyone very nervous. Under Park Hoon's tireless efforts, the patient's heart finally began to beat. At this time, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Park Hoon completed the originally impossible surgery with just one arm. He was very happy to hug each member of his group. When it was Soo-han's turn, she hugged Park Hoon tightly. There was an indescribable feeling in his heart. Park Hoon looked shyly at Jae-hee. Then he announcing the good news to the patient's family. Director Oh found out that the surgery had been successful and was extremely angry. He had to think of a way to make Park Hoon lose. He arranged for his son to go to the patient's family to tell Park Hoon is North Korean and has never attended a specialized school before. When the patient's family heard this, they were very stressed. She went to Park Hoon and scolded him. But when the patient woke up, it still takes some time. Now the patient can only be woken up through instruments. Dr. Han is very confident with his surgery. When the heart rate on the monitor shows a gradual increase, and his patient also regained consciousness. Then the hospital held a disciplinary meeting for Park Hoon. During the meeting, Dr. Han always pressured the opponent because he had long recognized that Park Hoon's father was his enemy. His question made Park Hoon very uncomfortable. After the meeting, Park Hoon went to Dr. Han and asked the other person why he was targeting me like that. Dr. Han told Park Hoon about the medical incident. No matter how Park Hoon explained it, Han also refused to believe his words. It was at this time that the monitoring room bell rang. Park Hoon's patient had a cardiac arrest. Under Soo-han's emergency care, the patient regained his heartbeat, which also made everyone breathe a sigh of relief. It turned out that Soo-han voluntarily called the patient up early. The patient's family did not listen to his explanation at all. Park Hoon was very angry at Soo-han's behavior. He pulled Soo-han went to ask her why he did that. Soo-han said that if he couldn't wake the patient up, he would be kicked out of the hospital. Park Hoon said that, so, what does it have to do with you? Because I like him. Soo-han's confession was unintentionally rejected. At this moment, she was extremely miserable. Jae-hee heard the news and came to comfort her. Jae-hee did not know how to comfort the other person because he was Park Hoon's girlfriend. It's just that their relationship is not public. She can only use a hug to express her apology. Then Soo-han wants to find Park Hoon to talk clearly. She finds at his residence, but she discovered 2 pairs of shoes on the ground. Out of curiosity, she looked at Park Hoon's computer. The wallpaper on the screen was a photo of the other 2 people. She couldn't believe it, then found a CD in the drawer, which was Jae-hee's medical examination records. When she saw the results, she realized that her best friend turned out to be the girlfriend that Park Hoon had been looking for a long time. At this moment, she was extremely depressed. It was at this moment that the other 2 held hands and went in. This scene was extremely embarrassing. She remembered just now. Jae-hee was still comforting her. Now she was with the person she liked. She felt like a clown. She tried to adjust her emotions, immediately left. Park Hoon stopped her. No matter how Park Hoon explained, Soo-han refused to understand. Then she turned around and left. The next day, 2 thugs came to the hospital with an indifferent attitude. Both were upset and wanted the doctor to quickly treat his wound. Soo-han couldn't look anymore and quickly stepped forward to stop him. Didn't expect the other person to hit someone and even slapped Soo-han. Soo-han didn't either. Weak clown slapped him back. When the gangster wanted to fight her, Park Hoon promptly appeared. It turned out that the person who came was the junior of a tycoon that Park Hoon had previously saved. Under the conciliation of his junior, this was the end. Soo-han did not dare to believe that Park Hoon still had this ability. Soo-han then applied ice to help Park Hoon, still unable to control and care for the other person. Jae-hee looked at everything in front of her for a long time and could not let go. She remembered the time with him, remembered how Soo-han worked hard for Park Hoon. She also began to doubt whether Soo-han was more compatible with Park Hoon than her. She looked at the photos on her phone and deleted all of Park Hoon's photos. At this point, she made a bold decision. She intended to give Park Hoon to Soo-han. The hospital held a board meeting to announce Dr. Han as the next director of the hospital because he won the opportunity to operate on Prime Minister Yang Suk-soo. Even though Park Hoon's patient regained consciousness, it took longer than Dr. Han's patient. That's why he assigned the position of director to Dr. Han. Director Oh's son gave him important documents, told him to hand them over to the hospital's lawyer. Out of curiosity, he opened the document to look at it, but discovered that the hospital's funds were being used illegally. Then he went to Director O's house to eat. That evening, when he learned that his son had handed over the documents to Dr. Han, he was extremely angry. At this time, he still did not completely trust Dr. Han. After eating, the three of them drank tea. He asked Soo-hyun and Dr. Han quickly got married, but the two clearly had their own ways of thinking. Dr. Han knew his girlfriend liked someone else, but because he really liked Soo-hyun, he said he wouldn't force her. At this moment, he also understood the reason why Park-hoon's father missed the medical incident, because of his revenge plan. He did not want to hurt the person he loved, but the first step of Dr. Han's revenge was the son of the director. While holding a celebration party, the police arrived. Director O's son was arrested for corruption and accepting bribes. At this time, Park-hoon seemed to understand something, knowing that he was the abandoned child. After the medical incident, he asked Dr. Han if he wanted revenge. Dr. Han said maybe this wasn't the right thing to do. Then he went to Director O and hinted at her opinion about the medical accident back then. Director O did not realize his mistake, and Dr. Han just wanted to hear a sincere regret, but Director O was full of contempt. Dr. Han was helpless, could only reveal his identity. He said he was an orphan that year. Principal O was so angry that he lost consciousness and fell to the ground. But Dr. Han was not moved at all. His purpose in coming here this time was revenge. Then everyone rushed over. Soo-hyun saw her father lying on the ground. She was extremely worried, then arranged the staff to prepare for the surgery. She didn't dare to believe the boyfriend in front of her. She asked him what he had done, but Dr. Han did not answer. The medical staff took Director O away. At this time, Soo-hyun was extremely angry and resentful of him. She said, "I will never forgive you." Then she turned and left. When everyone left, the Dr. Han sat down on the sofa. He considered his revenge successful, but in his heart he couldn't cheer up. Under the rescue of Park-hoon, Abbott O survived the danger. Soo-hyun was very grateful to Park-hoon. Then she went to Dr. Han and asked him why he was so cruel. Dr. Han didn't want to explain too much. Then he packed his things and prepared to leave. Before leaving, he looked at this place filled with memories. Soo-hyun's image kept appearing in his mind. He went to Abbott O's hospital room and looked at the enemy he hated to the core. He had many mixed emotions in his heart. Soo-hyun asked why he came here. Dr. Han said he had to go. Soo-hyun said, "So go quickly." She told him never to appear at the hospital again, and also not to appear near the hospital, looking at the girl he loved so deeply in front of him. Dr. Han's heart was extremely painful. Dr. Han came to say goodbye to Park-hoon. This time, Dr. Han came to entrust Soo-hyun to Park-hoon. He thinks that Park-hoon and Soo-hyun are really for each other. On the other side, Director O woke up and asked Soo-hyun to find Dr. Han. Arrived, Soo-hyun did not understand his father's actions, but Director O said that Dr. Han saved him. It turned out that after Director O fainted, Dr. Han gave him cardiopulmonary resuscitation, so he saved his life. Soo-hyun realized that she had misunderstood him, but no matter how she contacted Dr. Han, he did not answer her calls. When Soo-hyun ran out of the hospital, the Dr. Han had already driven away because the dean was recuperating. Soo-hyun took over as president. Jae-hee racked her brain to think of ways to annoy Park-hoon as much as possible. She was angry with him because she let him leave away from me and came to Soo-hyun. But Park-hoon said he only liked her. No matter what, he would not leave her. At this time, they both hugged each other and cried. The two people who loved each other decided not to separate. Furthermore, on the other side, Prime Minister Yang Suk-soo's surgery also began. Because of Dr. Han's departure, the surgery could only be taken over by Park-hoon. Before the surgery, Yang Suk-soo found Jae-hee come. They are planning a big conspiracy. Because Jae-hee can't bear to deceive Park-hoon again, so she decides to tell all secrets. The reason is that Jae-hee is a North Korean spy. It turns out that surgery for Yang Yuk-soo is just a shield. The person who really needs surgery is the president. Yang Suk-soo's plan is to have the president in a coma forever, thereby holding power in his hands. His plan has also received support from the North Korean government, because in order to prevent this plot, Park-hoon intended to inform the director about this. Unfortunately, the identities of the two people could not meet this guy. At this time, they thinking of Soo-hyun. The next day, the president received an invitation to visit the hospital. Under Soo-hyun's guidance, they visited many different facilities of the hospital. In a meeting room, Park-hoon suddenly appeared. His appearance made the bodyguards very nervous, but Park-hoon wanted to talk privately with the president. For safety reasons, the president's bodyguards insisted on staying. Right when Park-hoon was about to reveal the entire plan, Yang Suk-soo immediately appeared to interrupt him. When the two people shook hands, he discovered that the president's health was very poor. He placed his hand on the president's chest in his mind, immediately gave a three-dimensional view of this person's heart. At this moment, he judged that the president's life was not long, but his unreasonable actions were stopped by bodyguards. Park Hoon quickly apologized, then everyone left. Yang Suk-soo returned to the hospital room, received a phone call from the president. The president refused to have surgery at this hospital. This result surprised him. If he did not have surgery here, all his plans would fail. But his assistant told him that the president's heart could only last another week, and that without surgery, he would not live much longer, and said that the current method that could cure his disease was to regenerate his heart left ventricle. The success rate of this surgery is very low, and no one dares to do it, but Park Hoon completed it with just one hand. Yang Suk-soo on the other side was very worried. He continued to think of ways to convince this guy. The president came to this hospital for surgery, and at this moment, the president called again and said that the surgery had to be performed by Park Hoon's team, which made Yang Suk-soo breathe a sigh of relief. Then the president arrived at the hospital. Park Hoon patiently explained his condition but was interrupted because his doctor had said these situations many times. He wanted to know the success rate of the surgery. How much was it? And Park Hoon did not dare to admit was 100%. Then the two of them went to Yang Suk-soo and told him to schedule the surgery tomorrow. But at this time, the president suddenly fell ill. Park Hoon immediately began to arrange surgery. With the help of everyone, the president was taken into the operating room. Then the surgery began. On the other side, Yang Suk-soo began his own meeting. According to the national constitution, if the president falls into a coma, the prime minister will have full authority to replace the president. The surgery was completed smoothly, but the president has not regained consciousness. At this time, he was extremely excited. He stood up the other side, laughed at the president, saying that the president should have dealt with him long ago. Then, he would not have ended up today. But at this moment, the president suddenly opened his eyes. Only like this could know Yang Suk-soo's plan. Then Park Hoon and Jae-hee arrived. At this time, Yang Suk-soo knew that these two people had betrayed him, but the president had his own way of thinking. He did not know directly depose the prime minister, because that would cause great upheaval throughout the country. He chose to forgive Yang Suk-soo, which also meant that Park Hoon and Jae-hee were cruelly abandoned. Yang Suk-soo will definitely eliminate the two of them. The president agreed to hand over the two of them to him to handle. He only looked at his subordinates to indicate to eliminate the two of them. Then he left first. Suddenly the car stopped. Everyone was extremely confused, and the driver was the man in black because the plan failed. Yang Suk-soo and Park Hoon's group with North Koreans like him is no longer of any value. When everyone ran to check, the man in black had left a long time ago, and Yang Suk-soo was no longer breathing. The squad leader had been upset with Yang Suk-soo for a long time. He decided to forgive Park Hoon and Jae-hee. Park Hoon took Jae-hee to escape from here, but at this moment the gunshot rang out. Park Hoon smiled and told Jae-hee to go first. Waiting for Jae-hee to react, Park Hoon was injured heavy. Jae-hee looked behind Park Hoon. The person who opened fire was the man in black in front of him. Because Park Hoon and Jae-hee knew the contents of the entire plan, so he was forced to eliminate the two of them. He slowly moved forward, aiming at the two of them. Park Hoon held Jae-hee's hand tightly. This scene was like history repeating itself. This was the reason the two of them were separated before. When Guy in black was about to finish them off, when Park Hoon and Jae-hee jumped into the river, it's unclear how the two of them will live or die. 2 months later, Dr. Han came to the hospital to sincerely apologize to the director. Oh, looking at Soo-hyun coming, the gap between the two was resolved. For the happiness of his daughter, the conflict between Director Oh and Dr. Han was also resolved. The next day, Dr. Han drove Soo-hyun to a small town. Here she saw the person she used to like. Soo-hyun complained why he didn't contact her. She thought he was dead, because Jae-hee's identity belongs to North Korea. Dr. Han asked someone to bring her back. Today was also the day she returned country. A car slowly stopped. The person who got out of the car was none other than Jae-hee. Park Hoon and Jae-hee hugged each other tightly, and Soo-hyun also held Dr. Han's hand. The movie ends here. If you find it good, please give me a like so we can be motivated to make better videos. Gooby, and see you in the next video.